I'm here on behalf of the Institute of Ethical Selling. I've got my Institute of Ethical Selling hat on. Well, kind of. I suppose it's metaphorical. And we are going to discuss today 7 ways to close more sales ethically. 7 ways to close more sales ethically. So what I would like to do to kick off, just want to do a little bit of thinking about sales today. What are you guys seeing? So I'm going to give you 5 alternatives or 5 options where when I finish, you can pop into chat A, B, C, D or E, or whatever versions of those you are seeing, just to give us a little bit of a feeling, a bit of warm up, what's happening in the world of sales. So could it be that you are getting involved later in the buying process? You're getting involved later. You're talking to customers after they've done a ton of work. There's more information out there. Customers are trying to self-serve. They're sort of trying to work things out for themselves. You don't get involved until later on. So it's more advanced. They are more advanced. That would be your A. B is that customers are more biased to what it is that they're working out themselves. So they become more demanding. This is what I'm looking for. This is how I want to achieve it. This is the way that I'm going to go. And so we're having to respond to that because they've figured a whole ton of stuff out. So more advanced and more biased. Sounds like it's all going completely in customers' favor. However, the world is also more confusing. It's a more confusing place than ever before. Our customers are confused. They are trying to make sense of stuff. There's all too much information potentially. And so they're trying to figure out what the hell is going on. That could be something that we can help with. We might also see that there are more people involved in the decision than ever before. When we talk about decision-making units, stakeholders, they are bigger. More people are going to have their 2 penn'orth in thinking about what it is that they're going to do. More people than before. D. And then also we're seeing that there's more emotional factors. So there's these more personal things that are coming into the decision making. How that's going to affect the individual. That's what I mean by emotional. Yeah, could it be the risk that they're worried about, the ambition that they might be able to fulfill? Those kind of more emotional sides which are driving the motion of the sale. They could be coming into play as well. So if you could put into chat, which of those are you seeing? A, B, C, D, E, 1, 2, 3, 4, or all 5 of those. It could be everything that you're seeing. Because to a more or lesser extent, I am seeing all of these with the people that I'm working with. We're seeing a little bit of all of that. Yeah. So I've got an A, D, and E. So advanced, more people advanced, and they've all got more emotional things going on. Yeah, seeing a bit of all of them. Yeah, we've got a C in there. The world's a more confusing place, isn't it just? Isn't it just? I was having a cheeky little scroll just before I came on here. So, what's going on? Yeah, AI is going to sort it out for us though. Ask Claude. I don't know if it just makes things more confusing. Okay. So yeah, we're seeing all elements of these. Doesn't surprise me at all. That's definitely what I'm seeing going on. We'll bear this in mind as we're going through and as I'm targeting 7 things that you can take away. Yeah, because ultimately that is my main aim of this. 7 things that you can get your head around and you can apply it tomorrow. Oh, this afternoon, straight away. That's what we're looking to do here. So it's a shorter, punchier version. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to do. Highlight some areas for wins. So ideas, guidance. And if you've got any questions, please bang them into chat. We can pick up on those. Now, 3 main areas then we're just going to cover. I'll just lean into it as to kind of why ethical selling is a good idea. Actually, I'm going to start off a bit negative as to why people don't think it is. I suspect I'm preaching to converted here, but we'll touch on that, what it actually is, then we'll get into that how bit, those 7 ideas, bang, 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 bang. So a little bit about yourself. If you could just pop into chat, your job role, pop your job role in, whereabouts you are in the country as well. That's always, in the country, in the world, could be dialing in from anywhere. That's always pretty cool. So just job title, type of company, and where you are. While I very briefly introduce myself. So my name is Fred Copestake. So I'm an ambassador for the Institute of Ethical Selling. Over the last 25 years, I've been around the world 14 times, I calculated. Worked in 38 different countries. I've trained over 10,000 salespeople. A real honor, privilege to do that. And something that's given me a lot of insight into sales and the challenges that salespeople have. That led me to write my first book, Selling Through Partnering Skills, which is how we can deal with some of these more modern challenges. That came out in 2020. Talks all about thinking like a partner, being more collaborative. I will touch on that later. Yeah, 2020, I mean, it came out at the same time as, you know what? And so I've been locked down, same as everybody else, and watched all of Netflix. Got to the end of Tiger King, I think it was, and thought, come on, there's more to life than this. And that is when I wrote my second book, Hybrid Selling, because I was looking at a lot of these changes and stuff that was going to happen, happened, and other things that were going to happen are going to happen quicker. Yeah. So that's why I wrote Hybrid Selling. That came out then. And people that know me well, well, there was a natural progression. And people that know me well know I think in threes. I do a lot of stuff in threes. Your brain loves threes. But for me, there was a natural progression where I was going with these books and kind of keeping up to speed in what's happening. That's what led me to write Ethical Selling. So that came out very end of 2024. So look, in a nutshell, I'm all about good people doing good things in a good way. You can read that on different levels. Yeah, competent people achieving results because they've got a decent process. Happy days. We won't argue with that. But also we could say there's inherently decent people that are having an impact and making a difference because of the way in which they go about doing their business. That's another level I'll look at stuff. So yeah, that's me, and that's kind of why I'm here talking about this stuff. So why would people not want to get involved in ethical selling? Well, it's something to do with what I call the Goldilocks Dilemma. The Goldilocks Dilemma. So Goldilocks and the Three Bears, if you know that, you know the story where she comes in and she has the porridge and it's too hot, too cold, just right. Same with ethical selling, apart from we say it's too hard, too soft, and then just right. So when we're talking about too hard, what we're saying here is that people say, oh, it's too difficult. It's going to be expensive. We're going to need new processes. We're going to have to do a whole bunch of new training. Yeah, I've just looked in chat there. Yeah, where we're saying, yeah, well, we've already done a whole bunch of sales skills. We've put MedPick in place. Now we're going to have to do a whole bunch of other things. Oh, and the people change. We don't want to do this. It's just not worth it. Wrong. The too soft side is when people say, yeah, but does that mean we're going to become really passive? Yeah, we're going to just kind of lose all, kind of we're not going to be assertive. We're going to be like total pushovers. We're going to have to be transparent. So we're going to give people all our costs. We're going to lose a ton of money. No, also not true. Yeah, there is a just right. Yeah, there is absolutely a just right version. Yeah, and that is what I'm going to talk to you about. Yeah, because when we get this right, it is all about achieving win, win, win. Now, I suspect I'm going to a little skim down of the profiles and who you guys are there in chat. And you'll have come across win-win before, I'm pretty sure. So win-win-win, what's that about? So for me, it is customers got to win. Yep, same as. Companies got to win, okay? But also your own conscience as a salesperson. You've got to be comfortable and happy with the way in which you're going about doing stuff. So just in that little bit of depth, so we know the customer win, the customer's got to be comfortable. You'll hear me talk a little bit later about buyer safety. I'd say that's probably one of the biggest wins we should get for the customer, as well as the outcomes that they're looking for. Yeah, people buy outcomes. So to do this, we've got to deliver clarity for them. We've got to help them make sense of that confusing world. And this isn't about being clever, being difficult, or kind of, taking the wrong focus. We want to deliver that for them. And there could be that there's a kind of an ethical element of compliance, that there's certain things we have to do to sell to certain organizations. We've probably seen that. When we're talking about your company, well, yeah, we're in it for revenue. That is why we do what we do. So, but if we look at some of the stuff that ethical selling is telling us, it is best practice. Yeah, it's the best way to go about doing business, and then we get repeat business. We can build a whole bunch of respect for the way in which we do things. So the image in the market, why people want to work for us. Life becomes easier as we're starting to prospect and market out there. Yeah? And so yes, there is a return on investment that if there is a little bit of extra effort, and I don't really believe there is that much, if you're pretty confident and competent about what you do, then actually you're probably doing a lot of the stuff that makes a difference anyway. So then we've got this win for your conscience. So this is the thing that I sort of say, it's like looking in the mirror and being able to say, I've had a good day today, I've acted with integrity, been decent, there's no harm in what I've been doing today. I can be proud of myself. That's the mirror test. Yeah, why am I, and what I'm doing, it matters. I'm making a difference. Yeah, there's a bit of purpose behind what I do. I'm aligned. So it doesn't always feel like work. When you're aligned to what it is that you're doing, life is so much easier. Yeah, that motivation kicks in, this intrinsic motivation comes from inside where we're thinking that, yeah, you know what? I'm doing something decent here. So that's what we're talking about with the win-win-win as the simplest way to define ethical selling. That's the simplest way. Now, if I go into the what bit and we go into a kind of a bit more of a deeper definition, so we talk about ethical selling referring to conducting sales and marketing activities in a morally principled, socially responsible manner. So it's about honesty, transparency, integrity, focus on best interests, customer, and broader society. So yeah, it's a bit of a textbook definition, slightly longer even in the book, but look, we can talk about that. Yeah, so it gets us to think about ethics. Yeah, so what are ethics? Well, these are the principles that govern a person's behavior or the way in which they go about an activity. We often talk about medical ethics, don't we? So then we can start talking about the difference between morals and ethics. So ethics tend to be external. So these will be like, codes of conduct, the way in which we've signed up to do stuff. And morals will tend to be more of our own principles. So we get into the discussions of right and wrong. I got very, very aware of this when I was writing the book and thought, hang on a minute, this isn't the direction I want to go. I don't want to go off up into the blue sky talking about morals and principles and values and rights and wrongs, because I don't think it will help salespeople. There are some people who will love talking about that. Brilliant. That's a great, sat by a fire, glass of whiskey, having a chat about that stuff. But what I wanted to do was to go very tactical. I believe that ethical selling can be tactical. I've had arguments with people about this. No, it can't be. It's all principles. There's no tactics involved. Tactics are how you implement something. Tactics how you apply what it is that you know. The more tactical we can make it, the easier it is for salespeople to grasp it. Then they're going to go and do it, and we get that win-win-win. So that was the route I decided to take. That was very deliberate choice in writing the book. Tiny little piece about the ethics and morals, but really it was about breaking stuff down into what we can do. What can we actually do? Again, those that know me know I love a model. I do like a model. It makes stuff easier to hang stuff on. It gets us a kind of a way in which we can put things into categories so that we can grasp it faster, apply it quicker, get the results straight away. And that's what the ethical model does. ETHICAL. I'm also quite literal. And that's what we've got here. So the ethical model, what does it break down into? So there's areas in which we can focus on certain best practices, tools, techniques, tactics. Yeah, so empathetic communication, transparency and integrity, holistic value-centric approach, informed decision-making, collaborative relationship building, adaptive negotiation, learning and growth. Okay, 7 things. I've promised you 7 ways in which we can close more deals ethically. I'm going to pick one bit, sometimes it's 1.5, but hey, one bit from each of those so that we can think about, well, yeah, I can take that and apply it. Or even better, I am actually already doing that. Happy days, result. That is what we're looking for. So let's get into the how bit. Let's really get into the how. I'm going to break these down piece by piece. So empathetic communication. This is all about engaging in active dialogue to understand customer needs and wants. The tactic I am picking from this is questioning skills. Yeah, questioning skills. For me, it's such a foundational skill in all types of selling. Best salespeople are able to ask great questions. They understand questioning tools. They understand how to form them, what they're forming them for, what they're trying to achieve with them. There's various models around it. But let's talk at tool level. I'm going to give you 8 tools. So first tool is open questions. Open questions, these are ones which give you a variable answer. They're the what, why, when, where, who, how questions. Yeah, as those of you know the Rudyard Kipling poem, I keep 6 honest serving men who taught me all I knew. Their names were what and where and why, and when and how and who. It's how you learn. That was from the elephant child, how the little elephant child learns. So we want to ask those because when we ask them, people will give more information. And there is something else going on here. I believe that sales is changing to the point that salespeople, we're there for decision support. And so we are there as sense makers. And so when we're asking a good question, we're helping people to think. We're giving them that clarity. So open questions are cracking for that. Now we might ask a closed question. These are the yes, no answers. We want some kind of confirmation. If you're up and running and chatting, people probably tend to talk through those anyway. But sometimes we want a yes or no. We need a definitive on it. Lots of people get trained in that. Great. And if they're recognizing and using those consciously, if they've never come across it before, we see an instant uptake or an instant improvement. Now, what I would also talk to people about are some other ways of forming questions. So we have TED questions. So these are probing questions. So type 3, probing. TED, tell me, explain, describe. Technically, it's a command, but it's a way of asking a question so that people will elaborate more. Again, very fast way of improving a sort of probably a newer salesperson. Open question to start with. When you hear the answer, listen to it, and then tell me more about that. Explain what you mean. Describe how that works. See an instant improvement. Probing questions. Another way of changing the angle of the question is a hypothetical question. Hypothetical. Language pattern, if. If you had a limited budget, if you were the big boss of the company, if we were working 2 years from now and everything was going really well, what would we do? The if, the hypothetical, it breaks people out of stuck in the box thinking. So they're quite useful. Next one, summary. Summary question. So repeating back, paraphrasing, just check in that you've understood, but that also the customer's understood what they've said. This type of question. Could end up as a yes or no. So I think what you've told me is this, is this, is this, is this. Correct? So we can do that. Now, actually, we can ask a question by saying nothing. Silence. Silence. Letting people think, particularly if you've asked a good question, and to fill that vacuum, fill that space. But then it's a good idea if you're going to do that, particularly if you're working virtually, to give some kind of non-verbal communication, some kind of body language to show that you are listening and to encourage people to give that response. Making notes, whatever it is, to encourage them. And yes, I'm taking you seriously here. Final one, promised 8, is a high gain question. So now we're moving to a slightly different level of questioning skills. We're into a bit more expertise here. This is a very well-formed question based on some research that you've done on the customer, insights that you start to put together about them. That's a planned question that's gonna get them thinking deeply. Might have its roots in open, probably gonna have its roots in a hypothetical, but it shows you've done your homework and it really gets people thinking deeper. It's a high gain question. We start moving into other questioning patterns. But sake of speed, I want to talk about questions. I want to give those 8 questioning tools. Okay, cool. Next section is transparency and integrity. So this is all about operating with honesty, clarity, providing accurate information. So here, the thing I'm going to pick is actually from a fellow trainer, a guy called Todd Capone. Todd, cracking chap, wrote an excellent book called The Transparency Sale. So of course I'm going to pick from that if I'm talking about transparency. He's also written Transparency Leader and just recently a book about negotiation. But when I interviewed him on the podcast, he was talking to me about a tactic. Yeah? He's comfortable with tactics as well. Like, people can use them. The tactic he was talking about was lead with a flaw. F-L-A-W. F-L-A-W, a flaw, a fault. And short version is that rather than trying to say how brilliant we are at absolutely everything, sometimes it makes sense for us to say, do you know, if this is the most important thing for you, we probably aren't the best option, and I could point you somewhere else. But if this, and this are also high on your agenda, then absolutely, this is why we need to keep talking, and we need to uncover how that stuff's going to work for you. It's very disarming. It's super transparent. It's a shortcut to building trust, because so many people won't do that. It'll be a refreshing change for the customer. They'll think, well, wow, okay, I wasn't expecting that, and you didn't need to do it. So thinking about situations where you can be quite deliberate at doing that, again, I would advise that it's when you've done your research and know that it's more than just this they want, and they do need this, and this, then actually it makes sense to do that. So that's a quick one on transparency, lead with the flaw. Okay, so next up is the holistic value-centric approach. So this is prioritizing a way of working that focuses on the customer value and desired outcomes. So what I'm picking here is, again, it's from another colleague, a guy called Mike Wilkinson, who said to me once, what it was, we were traveling somewhere, it's on a plane, I think, and we were chatting away, and he said, of course, Fred, value is a mystery. And I said, yes, Mike. What do you mean, Mike? And he said, well, it's mystery. You don't know what it is. Customer probably doesn't know what it is either. Our job is to understand that mystery, is to solve that problem, is to work on it together. Now, there's a bunch of tools and techniques that we can do that. But I think it starts with this mindset that I can't just march in there. Yeah, look, I might have a value proposition, something to get us going. I might have a hypothesis. Yeah, I might have an intelligent assumption I'm going to use to kickstart stuff based on the insight, the stuff that I've been doing to think about this company and what's going on in their world. But I'm going to use that to prime the pump, and then off we go by really co-creating, collaborating on this to work this stuff out. So that's what I'll be saying is the smart thing to do in here. It's value is a mystery, and we don't know what it is. If we're rocking in and starting to lecture people in it, it's where we're likely to make a mistake. So it's thinking about stuff slightly differently, thinking about stuff together. Again, reasonably quick one. Next one I want to talk about is informed decision-making. Informed decision-making. So this is all about ensuring customers can make decisions with the right information and respecting their autonomy. So here, the key concept is buyer safety. I mentioned this once already, but so buyer safety, we've got to have them comfortable. We've got to protect them. They've got to feel safe. They've got to feel psychologically safe in working with us. Yeah, they get the choice. It's got to be easy for them to say no if that's the right thing for them to say. This is about going against the grain of that horrible sales stereotype of pressuring people to push them into doing something that suits us rather than them. We've got to give them that freedom of choice. They have got to be able to decide. Now, if we've done our job well and we've helped them to think and we've worked through their buying process, I think it's something else that we miss quite a lot in sales now. We get obsessed with our selling processes and trying to do sales to people rather than go, well, let's align to the stuff that they're doing anyway. That's where we're going to be more valuable. And then we can give them this freedom of choice. So there is a cracking way to do this. When I first started sales training 25 years ago, the course that I inherited had this bunch of closes. I think it was 30 closes that the participants had to learn overnight. And they came in next day and we'd read out the close and they'd have to write down what sort it was. Yeah. Do you want to have that in red or blue? Alternative close. Yeah. So we'll deliver this to you before Christmas, and that means, it's the assumptive. You don't need those. You don't need them anymore. There's one close that I now train. It's called the perfect close. And I learned this from a guy called James Muir. Again, James, another podcast guest, came on, discussed this book where I asked him, why are you writing a book about closing? It's 2021, mate. Come on, it's a bit 80s, isn't it? And he goes, well, no, you still need to get commitment to the next part of the sale. That's what it's all about. Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. I said, but why is it perfect then? He said, well, because it's 95% effective. Really? Wow. Well, you've got to do the rest of the selling right, but yeah. I said, well, how do you know? He goes, because I've studied millions of calls. And there's this language pattern that works really well. I'm like, oh, wow. Tell me what it is. He says, right, okay, you've got to be very deliberate in the way you ask this. You've got to do something right. You can't just rock up and ask it. But the language pattern is, does it make sense for us to? So you can see this is a low pressure close. You're not pushing anybody towards it. You're not kind of intimidating them into something. Yeah, we're checking whether it's right to be moving on. We're keeping that buyer safety in place. Because it's a closed question. There's a yes or no answer. Does it make sense for us to submit a proposal and come back and present it to you next week? Yes. Oh, happy days. I'll do that then. No. What do you think the next step is? Well, I think we should probably go and speak to our FD first. Oh, right, all right then. Okay, well, let's set that up. So what we're doing is we're mapping ourselves onto their buying process. We're keeping things moving forward. We're also keeping control to a degree because we're predicting what we think should be the next obvious step, which is especially true if we're selling something that people aren't used to buying. We might be selling something that it's not a normal purchase for them. They need that help. They need that guidance. We could take advantage of it. We're not going to do that. We're going to make sure they're comfortable and safe as we're moving that forward. So that's why I really like that way of operating when we're talking about this informed decision-making element of ethical selling framework. So next part, collaborative relationship building. So it's about thinking like a partner to build deeper, longer lasting relationships. It's what my first book was about. Really, that was kind of the main thrust of that, in the way in which we start to approach the sales, thinking like a partner, whether it is a partnership or not. So it doesn't have to be a formal business alliance, but we think like this, it changes how we operate. Now we do things in a way more akin to be collaborative. So think like a partner. That's the key for this bit. That's the bit that I'm picking for the collaborative relationship building element. And what I talked about in the book is that there are 6 elements of PQ. PQ is partnering skills. So it's the lesser known cousin of IQ and EQ. I didn't invent it. A guy called Steve Dent researched a lot of this stuff about the same time that EQ was really coming to the fore, late 80s, early 90s. And so what the elements of PQ are, I was looking at because I was thinking particularly about channel, actually. I was thinking particularly about IT sales, as it happens. And I looked at this and thought, well, this is every sale, isn't it? This is every sale with a modern context. Because when you look at these and you break them down and you bake them into the way in which you're operating, it can only be better for both parties and you. So then we're going to get win-win-win. I hadn't quite made the leap to win-win-win at that stage. I was on my journey. So what are these 6 elements? So, okay, first one's trust. That's foundational relationships. First thing that we want to be establishing, I've talked about fast tracks to trust. So if we can build trust, we can do a better job. We do that by focusing on a win-win outcome. Okay, win-win-win now, I've said that. Yeah. We do this by recognizing interdependence. Not independence, Easiest way to think about this. Your success is my success. That's how a salesperson should be thinking. If I make the customer successful, then I'm successful. Yeah. What are the outcomes they're looking for? What are the results? Yeah. When we start thinking like that and we make them successful, that's going to be better for us. Often we might be working with a bigger team as well. So we've got to be interdependent with our own company as well. So there's a kind of a 2-win on that. Steve Dent talked about self-disclosure and feedback. Now I will tend to use the word transparency. It just feels a bit more modern, it feels a bit easier for people to get their head around. But it involves like giving information about people and yourself, yeah, feeding stuff back. So transparency, another key part. We've got to be comfortable with change. We sell change. We sell change. We want people to do things differently. We want them to do different things. We've got to be comfortable with change. If we're not, how can we really be in a position to ask others to? And when we understand change and how people react to it, then we're in a very strong position. Because typically we might see that the outcomes they're going to get, they're brilliant for them. Look at that. How wonderful is this going to be? But a reaction to change could be sorrow, anger, rejection. That could be anger. People don't want to change. They get fed up by the fact they're going to have to do something different. We're banging on as a salesperson about how great this thing is, but actually they're thinking, I don't really want to. It's a right pain in the neck. So we've got to recognize where people are on that change curve so that we can adapt and get our messaging right. And another element of this is future orientation. So we're looking towards what it is that we're trying to achieve and then building plans and building what we're doing towards that, making decisions based on that future orientation. Think like a partner. That's what we're talking about in collaborative relationship building. Okay, moving on, we've got the penultimate one here, which is adaptive negotiation. Adaptive negotiation. So this is approaching negotiation ethically and using flexibility to drive those win-win outcomes. So a lot of talk at the moment around a negotiation and different approaches. Yeah, we've got the Harvard principled approach that's been around a long time, getting to yes. Yeah, and then there's a lot of people in the world of sales who are loving the whole never split the difference thing. Chris Voss approach. Yeah. I have opinions on that. Yeah, I like a lot of stuff in it, but also it's based on crisis negotiation, which I believe is different to commercial negotiation. But it doesn't mean we can't take things from it. And so it's one of the benefits of being someone who's agnostic about this stuff is I'm having the best bits. And that's what that chapter of the book takes. It's like bits on there, and I call it an adaptive approach. But the bit I'm taking for today, I promise you these 7 things, it's the 15-second negotiation training. If you, then I. If you, then I. Negotiation is all about swapsies. Swapsies. And when we were kids, we used to swap stuff. Trading cards, sweeties, Pokemons, I don't know, whatever it is. But they weren't always exactly the thing that you would swap. So we've got to work out the level of the value of the thing that you're going to swap compared to the thing that you want back. We do that prep, and then we use this language pattern where we're making sure that we put what the other party has to do with what we're willing to do. So we're always looking for an interchange, a trade, rather than a gift. If we're just dropping out discounts, if we're just giving things away, people will keep taking from us. So we've got to look at how we can integrate that if you, then I thinking. That's a core part of negotiation. Another big part is the prep to do that. And then recognizing some of the tactics and gambits that might go on in there as we're starting to get to that point of agreement. And yeah, and don't forget, negotiation is actually trying to agree. Yeah, we're in this in a commercial sense because we want to agree. We want to both leave this better for the fact that we've decided how to do something. I think that's why it's a bit different to crisis, but anyway, that's me. So if you, then I, that's your core piece to take away. Swapsies, tradables, trading, when we're talking about negotiation. Final part then is learning and growth. Learning and growth. So here, this is all about having a growth mindset. Carol Dweck talks about growth mindset as opposed to fixed. Fixed, no, can't tell me anything. I know what I'm doing here. I'm one of the best salespeople in the world. Yeah, I've come across a lot of people who can't be told anything. And they go, guess what? They're right. They're right. Yeah. However, when you plot them on the Dunning-Kruger curve, what you might see here is that they have very, very high confidence, but their competence is not so high. Yeah, because they don't know so much. They don't know what they don't know. And that's why confidence is at a sky high. That's often called peak amount stupidity. Because what you then find is as people start to learn more and uncover more and realize there's different ways to do stuff, confidence can dip a little bit. Yeah, so it actually come down before building that back up. So yeah, I'm often aware of where people might be on that. Because for me, and that wasn't one to take away, the takeaway is to just think of selling as it's something that we can continually get better at. There are so many elements that if we can add them to how we operate, we can get better at it. I think some people just get totally blinkered. It's like, no, I've got enough now, don't need to do any more. The analogy I use here is like of a drum set, big concert drummer. If you've got like a stick, drumstick and with a snare drum, you're tapping away on that, tick, 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 tick. It's not a brilliant performance. Big drummer, rock band, he's going to have various different drums, different cymbals, different things that they can play to get different sounds as and when the song's requiring it. I mean, take it crazy. It's sort of like Tommy Lee will strap his drum kit onto a roller coaster and go upside down and have flashing lights and stuff all over it because it's just improving the performance. There's more bits to it. And I think that analogy works really quite nicely in sales, that we can keep adding bits, getting better at them. And the more we've got, the more accomplished we can be, the better that overall performance can be. So there we go. There we go. There's the ethical model where I've picked out a couple of little bits from each of those. Yeah. Questions. Lead with a 4. Value is a mystery. Buyer safety. And the perfect close. Think like a partner. If you, then I, and then a growth mindset. That's what the ethical selling model is about. Yeah, that's what I cover in the book. There's more tactics, there's more tools, there's more techniques to do that. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. So, that's pretty much what I want to get to. I've kept my eye on the chat. And now I've been going at pace. No questions as I can see it so far. I'll give you a moment to pop stuff in there if there are. But otherwise, I'll let you put into chat, who's that? Who's that? There we go. Probably should have driven a little bit more interaction on this, but hey, who's that? Pop in there. Here's your quiz question, your little after lunch quiz. Who've I got there on screen? Colombo. Now then, some of you are probably thinking, why? Some of you going, I know where you're going with this, Copestake. Yep, it's the old Colombo. Just one more thing. I want to do just one more thing on that. Actually, no, I'm going to just wait before I do my just one more thing, because I've seen a question in there, which is great. What's your advice for outreaching ethically and the best way to do it? What a cracking question, Ben. You know what? I think you might have given me a title for my next webinar. That's a biggie. I suspect that I'll get a load of people on it. But I would say that the advice for it is it's to respect the person that you're reaching out to. Yeah, there are so many ways that you could just smash out quantity now. Yeah, you can smash out quantity with an element of personalization. You know, the AI stuff is really coming on leaps and bounds. But to be honest, I think most people can still tell, and you're going to come across as a little bit inauthentic on that. Because personalization is one thing, relevance is another. The more relevant it is, the more someone's going to sit up and take notice. So if you, and look, again, use the tools. I'm not anti-AI in the slightest. Got a course on it. But you're thinking about who you're going to talk to and how you can make it so super relevant to them. It's just very hard for them to say, well, I've got to talk to this person because they get it. They get me. That would be what I would do. Now, whether that is then through your cold call, whether it would be through sending them a LinkedIn message, I think if you send a video prospecting is still a little bit different in many sectors anyway. Yeah, and particularly if you're recording it specifically for the person. Voice note, because you can get through in that, and you haven't got long, have you? Short period of time that you've done a bit of homework, Here are the problems that you believe they have. Problem prospecting. Bang, work in a 3, like 3s. That's how I think you're probably going to get better bang for your bucks rather than just smashing something out there. Yeah. Oh, another question there. Good. Love questions. How should we deal with a prospect who seems to be genuinely interested but keeps delaying the decision? Okay, so funny enough, I was writing about that on LinkedIn this week. Yeah, often what we've actually got going on here is we're misaligned. Yeah, we're going merrily along our sales process, but actually their buying process, they're at a different place in that. The decision isn't delayed. You just think it is. It's delayed for you because your process says, hey, they should be giving me a purchase order now. They're going, we're just still actually scoping whether this thing will work. So slow down to speed up, step back, yeah, and work through with them what is their process? How are they going to make that decision? What are they going to do? Who is involved? Try to get some of those questions rather than dashing straight through to, oh, guess what? I got to talk about my thing and they think it's brilliant. Work back in, like, so whereabouts are you now? How are you going to go through this? Who's going to be involved? Who do we need to get involved? Yeah. Now, as I said earlier, it could be, we don't really know, we've never bought stuff like this before. Right, okay, well, I can guide you through typically how you might want to look at this. Yeah. Are you going to get procurement involved? Oh no, do we have to? You probably will have to, yes. Let's go and get them involved. Let's get them on side earlier. So short answer then, slowing it up. Think about their buying process and what they're going to be going through as to then whether it really is slowed up or how you can then help them to proceed through that more effectively. I used that expression earlier on, decision support. They're making a decision, we're there to support it. Yeah, hopefully that helps. Good. Any more for any more? Look, if you have questions off the back of this that occur to you, think, oh, I wish I'd asked that, you'll find me on LinkedIn. You can always fire one over there and I can, well, it's inspiration for a post, isn't it? You'll be doing me a massive favor. But I can certainly do that. Yeah. So just one more thing. It is just to highlight the Institute of Ethical Selling. Institute of Ethical Selling actually uses the model from the book as its core. Yeah, it uses it as the core for the orientation, the certification, and the ongoing information. So what do I mean by the orientation certification? When you become a member of IES, you get access to a little mini training course. So basically some of the stuff we've been going through, a little bit more around each of the elements, and there's a little test off the back of each of those. Test of understanding. Great thing is when you get to the end of that and you pass all those tests, you're certified. You're a certified ethical seller. And this gives you access to a certi-key. So the certi-key is this badge that you can display showing how long you've been a member, when you became certified, and you can use that to show people how you sell. So I talked about trying to get to trust fast. This is a way in which you can demonstrate to people, this is how I go about my business. Yeah, you're going to be safe. I'm going to do things in a way conducive to stuff I suspect that you would prefer to work to. Stick it on email signatures, talk about having it. I've got it in my LinkedIn header. Different places you can say, hey, look, this is how we go about stuff. This is how we go about stuff. That's what your certi-key is for. So membership to that is, well, free. You can join for free. You can be an associate member for free. Premium member, 150 quid a year. So that gives you access to a little bit more stuff. Yeah. Companies can affiliate. So the company can become an affiliated member, and that actually gives an advantageous premium membership price to all their salespeople. Yeah. So look, you expect there's different things which it opens up different people. If that is something of interest, there is a link to that on screen now. You could scan that, get straight through, put your name in, have a look as an associate, or if you say you want to go full on premium, there's those other bits like the huddles, access to some playbooks. There is actually a whole library of more general sales training in there as well from one of the partners. So there is quite a lot more for premium. Yep. So that is the Institute of Ethical Selling. that's something that you can have a look at. So that is where I wanted to get to today. Slightly stripped back, hopefully still hugely valuable. Got something from it. If there are any more questions, now is the time to drop that into chat. But if not, then this is when I had promised to finish anyway. And I know that 2 o'clock UK time is a classic meeting time, so everyone's starting to get their heads in and gone, oh, am I going in with enough insight? Let me go and make sure I've got insight and I'm asking a really good high gain question. Yeah. So, where we go. So I've just seen another question there. How long to follow up with clients that haven't made a decision or come back to you? Really difficult questions. How long's a piece of string? Depends what it is you're selling. I think, again, I'll go back to what I said as one of the answers to the other question, as to kind of, how do you really understand their buying process? You know, what are they actually doing? What are they trying to achieve? They've not come back to you because actually what you've given them, they're still working through. So when you know what it is that they're actually doing, there's more of a reason for you to continue on the journey with them as they're going through that whole buying process. I can't really answer how long. What I would say is how to, and that would be thinking about what it is that they're trying to achieve, what are the outcomes that they are looking for. Ideally, we've established that stuff. And anything you find, anything that you've got that you can keep sharing with them. Hey, look, I know you're trying to achieve this. This is something we've just produced. Well, I've just produced. Look, I've just written a LinkedIn post about this. I know we were talking about that before. So you can create your own content to support that. That would be how I would do it. So I think it's how to rather than how long, if you don't mind me correcting your question. Habit. It's a trainer's habit. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Cool. Good. Right. In that case, so we go. So I usually ask at the end of each meeting, when shall we meet again? I'm not even going to do a Shakespearean joke about that. How long do you need? And I schedule the next team's meeting. Yeah, this is so I'm not waiting for them. Yeah. BAFM, isn't it? Book a meeting from a meeting. BAFM, something like that. Yeah. Then we get one in, and then we can keep moving it on. Yeah. So keeping up the progress. Yeah, it's a good idea that. BAFM, book a meeting from a meeting. BAFM. Yeah, that's what it is. So we can certainly do that. Cool. Any more for anyone? I would stand and talk about this stuff all day. And do. If there's no one wants to listen, I record videos and so I'll put all that stuff out as well. So excellent. Right, in that case, what I'm going to do is I will close down this webinar. It is recorded. We will publish the link. You'll all get a copy of the link. If you're watching this on record, because you weren't watching it live, and look, if you see me answer some questions and you want to ask me, please do. Yeah, that's what I'm here for. Drop them into the chat comments below. And yeah, let's have some good people doing good things in a good way. Take care.